This year's college football 27 video game got Ohio State's offense right, but the defense will have to prove themselves in 2026. So, college football 27 dropped their top 10 offenses and defenses in their next video game. The Buckeyes are number one on offense, but outside the top five on defense. Stick with me as we discuss right and what they got wrong, as I am breaking down exactly what EA Sports got right about the exploding offense this year, where the defense ratings are not seeing the reality of the sport, and what else I think they got right or wrong for the rest of the country as well. And of course, we're talking about this over at Buckeye Huddle as well. So come on over, join the conversation. Me, Kevin Noon, Mark Givler, Ellis, got more contributors over there as well, more guys coming too, and a lot of fun over there at the Buckeye Huddle message board. So come on over to the website there and join us. All right, so let's get into what the game actually dropped on Tuesday. I'll bring up the tweet here so you guys can see it. Oregon sits at 91 overall as the top team on defense, and then Ohio State, Indiana are at 90. Ohio State's at 88 on defense. Indiana's at 90, right behind them. On the offensive side, EA gave Ohio State a 92, the highest rated offense in college football 27. Our defense landed at the 88, like I said, which puts it all around seventh there, tied with a few other programs, but right there. Oregon's defense is the highest in the game at 91. So like I said, their offensive number lines up with a lot of what we've seen and already talked about with Ohio State this offseason. Ohio State has 4 returning starters on the offensive line, and they are one of 5 teams in the country returning their leading passer, rusher, and receiver from last season. I made an episode all about that. I'll link that down in the description if you want to watch and figure out more about Ohio State returning that talent. We've got so much strength on that side of the ball this year in the game. I think the game got that part exactly right. The offensive line has the potential to be the best in the country, perhaps. I'm not saying it will be. I do still have a few question marks about Tyler Bowen. I think the recruiting is fantastic. I think he's coming in and doing that exactly the way he was supposed to. But I also think that Arthur Smith is going to be huge for the offensive line this year as well. Having a 5th-year senior starting his 3rd year at center, and Carson Hinsman, I think is going to be huge. To me, that matters a lot, not just for the offensive line, but for the offense in general. Meanwhile, Julian Sayin is a veteran quarterback now who's already shown he can run this thing at a high level. And then you got Bo Jackson, who gives us a proven physical back who can handle workload. And there are others in the running back room and others that could be utilized back explosiveness too. And then there's Jeremiah Smith, the best player in college football, no question there. In the player projections I posted a couple of weeks ago, I had Smith at the top and several other Buckeyes climbing into the 90s on the offensive side. I did a prediction. I'll link that down in the description below as well. Now, I suspect EA Sports will land in a very similar neighborhood that I did with a lot of my rankings, especially going off of these ratings here. The continuity up front plus the explosive skill talent creates exactly the kind of unit that should dominate most weeks on offense. That's the part that feels exactly right to me. Good job by EA Sports. We should be or one of the best offenses in the country on paper, and the game reflects that. But here's where the warning starts to show up a little bit, and where I think things started to go south for EA Sports. The defense is an 88, and is part of what makes me pause, right? Not because it's terrible. This is a solid rating, and I get it. The defense lost a lot of talent to the draft. Caleb Downs is gone. 2 top 10 linebackers are out now. You don't replace that overnight, but I do think the drop off will not be as large as some people think it might be. Ohio State ended college football 20 that game with a 94 rating on defense. I'm sorry, but that was far too low for me. I know it's 94 is still really high, but that was far too low. To me, it should have been more like a 96 or better. The defense was one of the best in college football history, and a 94, I don't think reflects that. I have no doubt they should be lower than what they were last year, obviously, but an 88 seems too low, especially when you have Alabama sitting there at an 89. Maybe Ohio State will have worse, stats, and that's how the tougher schedule will be out there in 2026. But I cannot see a world where Kalen DeBoer produces a better defense than Ryan Day and Matt Patricia, and the talent that Ohio State has on defense as well. Now, of course, some talent is only potential right now. We have potential at linebacker in the middle of the defensive line. There's some potential as well, and a couple safety spots too, no question. But they aren't all young pieces. The veterans from the transfer portal are coming in, and they do need to step up and prove themselves that they deserve to be at Ohio State. Nobody comes in and just, owns a spot right away. But I expect this potential to become production pretty quickly. The scheme doesn't have to gel as quickly as last year did. The young players have been in the scheme for at least a year now, and the veterans are smart players who have run different schemes and prepared to come in and produce right away. This is going to give Ohio State an even more complex and interesting scheme that I think will confuse quarterbacks quite a bit. Now, I know the game's focus is more on player ratings and stuff, so I expect Ohio State players, like knowing that they have this 88 rating, I'm expecting, players like Devin Sanchez and Zion Grady to not be very high, but I expect those guys like that to climb by the end of the year, especially somebody like Devin Sanchez, because everything I'm hearing about Devin Sanchez is that he could be an All-American, some type of All-American this season. First or second team Big Ten for sure is something that he could have his eyes set on. And like I said, they have potential, but it needs to perform. And I think once they perform, it will become evident to everyone that this Ohio State defense didn't drop off as far as many people thought would. But I get it. EA Sports is giving the offense the crown while being cautious about the defense. It's not an insult as much as some people might take it that way, but it is a chance to prove EA Sports wrong. But it's up to Matt Patricia and the with how the new pieces fit in the scheme. We've seen them do it before. Ohio State is not a reset program. State reloads. Many people thought they lost their talent last year, and then Arvell Reese came in first year off and was a top 5 pick. Hayden McDonald, he went nearly first round without the elite pass rushing moves that a lot of guys that go as high as he did have, and most high round interior defensive tackles have. And then Davis Igbinosun went from the most penalized defensive player in the country last year to this past year being a second round pick. It gives a lot of reason to believe that Ohio State players are not just going to come back and be good, but they're going to continue to improve, and the young guys will come in and have high upside. Now, let's talk about the rest of the list, okay? Because the rest of the list has some stuff to talk about here as well. If you look at the top of the rankings, because it matters evaluate ourselves to other people or other programs, right? I'm fully on board with Indiana sitting at 90 overall to be top 3. I know not everybody's there, all right? But I do think it's a little, some people are not giving them enough credit because they have more returning talent than most people think. And when we talk about Ohio State getting better, Indiana's players get better under Cignetti. And so I think, plus when you return nearly the entire coaching staff who was so huge that win last year, the momentum, the talent infusion, the way they're building, it all tracks. I've been high on them for a while, and the game isn't overrating them, in my opinion. That's a program that's actually putting it together on both sides of the ball, that actually has good coaching, who's developing players and not just developing, some 3 stars into 4 star type of players. They're developing players for the NFL to do really well. Oregon is a tricky one though, because I think they might be the most talented team in the country, but with so much talent returning, I'm still a little skeptical about them. They elevated 2 new coordinators. It's not a massive schematic overhaul. Both of these guys were on staff co-coordinators last year, so they'll both likely run similar systems to what the previous coach did. And both Chris Hampton and Drew Mehringer, Chris Hampton the defense coordinator, Drew Mehringer the new offensive coordinator, they both have experience elsewhere. So neither is like a Brian Hartline situation who coached his entire career there, but the game seems to be assuming that it all just clicks immediately and they stay at the top. I'm not saying they won't, but I'm slightly skeptical that they're going to be the number 2 offense in the nation right away and the number 1 defense in the nation right away. Early season bumps are common in those situations, and if the new coordinator's ideas don't mesh perfectly with the personnel they have, that top rating could be looking a little generous by October when they start changing some of these ratings. We should watch that closely, not just because it's interesting, but also not so much the rating, but the Oregon defense we should watch closely, not just because it's interesting, but also because Ohio State plays them in November. right? But it will look, but if you look at the rest of all this, the hype for LSU seems like a lot. I get Kiffin's hot offense is high, but the defense only one rating less than Ohio State is pretty comical. If you ask me, all new staff there on defense, new lot to get used to. Probably should have, maybe like Texas Tech above them, if we're being honest. Maybe Michigan up there above them. Missouri on offense also seems strange in the top 10 on offense there. They've only been in the top 5 in the SEC with their offense once since 2020, and that one time they were 5th overall, so it's not like they were even that high. I know Austin Simmons Ole Miss last year, but he got hurt and never got that job back. I know Trinidad Chambliss was good, but still, it wasn't like he necessarily lit the world on fire while he was there. I guess it's just a lot of respect for Ahmad Hardy, which is fine. I think Hardy is a very good back, but I don't know if he can carry a top 10 offensive rating. That seems a little high to me. The only other big thought I suppose I would have is, how does Notre Dame not have the best defense, in my opinion? Notre Dame has an elite secondary, a highly disruptive pass rush coming back. Leonard Moore anchoring it alongside Christian Gray, plus the addition of Colorado transfer DJ McKinney for starting caliber depth and comfortable rotation. You got veteran safeties like Adon Schuler and Tay Johnson. They bring proven playmaking experience in the back end. Up front, you have Boubacar Traore, I believe is how you pronounce it, and Bryce Young are primed to dominate on the edge, and the interior defensive tackle room is pretty strong as well, setting up major improvements with stuff rate and tackles for loss. The linebacker core is deep and versatile, led by the athletic standout Drake Bowen, who can plug gaps in the run game and drop into coverage against tempo offenses. And of course, Marcus Freeman, Chris Ash. This is the second year under Chris Ash. They dramatically, they already showed last season they could tighten up dramatically, limiting opponents to just 12.6 points per game over the final 9 games. That's continuity, returning production, scheme familiarity, and a front 7 that can actually play fast from week 1. That's the profile of a true number 1 defense, in my opinion. So I'm not really sure why they didn't get the number 1 defense, but it is what it is. All right. So last thing here before we're done for my basketball Buckeyes. Let's talk basketball for a second, because we got news on Monday. I know this is Tuesday night, but we had a Monday recruiting show, so I'm just not going to talk about this. Dusty May is out at Michigan. Dusty May has gone to the NBA. The former Michigan basketball head coach who won the national championship this year in Michigan basketball is right back in the middle, and actually just Michigan in general is right back in the middle of their favorite activity. Chaos, total chaos. Another head coach out the door after just 2 seasons, following the footsteps of John Beilein and Jim Harbaugh before him. Rumors are running around out there with so many different things about, they're out of money because they spent it all on lawyers for Sharon Moore stuff. Now the possibility of losing donors with just how much of a mess everything's been with the regents and stuff like that. They seem pretty solid on their story of Dusty May just didn't like college basketball, even though he just won a national championship. It seems a little strange to me, but it doesn't sound like it's a good timing anymore up there. They'll have another, portal window opening and another round of Michigan fans convincing themselves this is actually somehow a good thing. We've seen this movie before. We know how they operate. The biggest takeaway for Ohio State is simple. A dominant coach for the past, 2 years for the team up north just walked out the door. May was 4-0 against Ohio State in his 2 seasons in Ann Arbor. He had Jake Diebler's number. He had our number, tactically and everything else. Now, Ohio State played well against them the times they played him, especially last season, but still they were not able to get it done. And it showed every time we played them. You would have loved nothing more than to get him back next season and beat him straight up twice and shut that narrative down for good. Instead, he's leaving on his own terms, and that removes a legitimate problem from the Big Ten landscape. It also takes a massive weight off Jake Diebler's shoulders. When Ohio State passed on May and promoted Diebler instead, the comparisons were constant and a bit unfair, if we're being honest, but I also don't blame fans for holding to a high standard. I just didn't like how every time they lost, it was like, well, May would have won this game, or the what if questions that came flying in every time. Diebler had to build his program all staring at the guy who they didn't hire, lighting it up just right down the road. The shadow's gone now, though. Diebler can focus on his own roster, his own system, his own timeline. Not that he wasn't before, but you get what I'm saying. Like, Michigan's sudden exit only makes things messier for them. Sounds like Mike Boynton is going to be the interim interim there. He was an assistant coach for Dusty May. And it sounds like he's kind of the fallback if they whiff on some of the bigger names they're chasing. I mean, they're going to go after guys like Billy Donovan, but probably don't want to hire him because, well, not him, probably don't want to hire Boynton because although he wasn't a very good coach at Oklahoma State, and Ohio State fans are starting to find some of his Instagram followers, which might not be a great sign after what just happened with Sharon Moore, if I'm being honest, while they're sorting through the coaching candidates and trying to keep their roster together. Ohio State's incoming 5-star talent gets a clear runway. Those guys can step in and immediately compete for playing time and conference supremacy instead of fighting against an established, experienced Michigan group. Sometimes the best wins are the ones that happen without you ever even stepping on the floor. Anyway, that's all we got for this episode of the Big Ten Huddle podcast. Appreciate you being here. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Have a good one.